If you could, just please scan the room, show all these beautiful, lovely people, the audience. Everybody's so happy to be here, especially Matt.
Let me just smile. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what I was asked to do.
Excellent. All right, cool. Hey, thanks everybody for giving me 5 minutes to talk about a rather taboo subject, sometimes controversial in the recovery community. That's the disease theory. Now, is alcoholism, in particular, is what I'm going to be talking about. Is it a disease? I'm going to tell you why and how. Yes, the answer is alcoholism is a disease. I'm going to compare it to a conventionally accepted disease these days of diabetes. I'm thinking that alcoholism is kind of like the diabetes of the brain. So let's start with talking about diabetes. Right here we got our diabetic. We're going to give him a little Wilford Brimley mustache, okay, because diabetes. All right, Wilford is genetically predisposed to being a diabetic, meaning his body is different from most. When he inhales these cupcakes right here, and let's be honest, he's probably going to have about 4 of them, right? When he does this, his body, just like everyone else's, has a bunch of simple sugars that go into it. So the body goes, whoa, dude, his body, Wilford here, his pancreas, kind of overreacts and puts out a superabundance of a chemical called insulin. And what the insulin does is it distributes all of that simple sugar stuff, take those hooligans and give them something to do and bring nutrition to the body. However, what happens with Wilford is his pancreas panicked and put out too much insulin. So now what are we going to do with that? What this insulin does is, even though it's been only an hour since he had his 4 cupcakes, it sends a message to Wilford's brain, making him ravenously hungry. Because this insulin's like, dude, give us something to do. All right? So what's happening to the alcoholic now? Basically, this is the same thing, but it's happening in the brain. Somebody, let's call this Joe Alcoholic, is genetically predisposed to being an alcoholic. Why? Because he goes to Applebee's one day and has a couple Bacardi foo-foo drinks, and he gets a little too toasted. Let's face it, he's a little bit shit-faced, right? So his body processes alcohol differently. That's his liver right there. When the liver can't process as much alcohol as Joe just intaked, what happens is it converts it into a different source or different chemical called acetaldehyde. There, nailed it. Acetaldehyde is a noxious gas or liquid that, if this releases in a subway, kills everybody. It's completely toxic. This doesn't happen for everybody, but only the alcoholic. So it turns the alcohol into acetaldehyde, shoots it directly to the brain, and the brain goes, dude, WTF, mate, what is going on? So via the opiate receptors or the endorphin receptors, it converts that acetaldehyde into what we now know and are calling the alcoholic chemical THIQ. THIQ has been found notoriously in the past in opiate addicts. Just up until recently, it was found by a lady named Virginia who was doing autopsies of people homeless found on the streets, the homeless winos, and she was finding an abundance of THIQ in their system. And she was like, what's going on? These people weren't opiate addicts, they were winos, they were alcoholics. So upon further investigation, we figured out that alcoholics have this chemical. So what is THIQ? Basically, it is the insulin of the brain. So when the acetaldehyde turns into THIQ, it hijacks the brain, and it works as sending its signals saying that it's ravenously, in this case, thirsty. And the more that we drink, the more THIQ develops in the brain. Now, the interesting thing about THIQ is once it's developed in the brain, it stays there. Kind of sounds familiar, right? Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. So we can shrink the amount of THIQ in the brain with abstinence from alcohol, but it doesn't totally go away. So I would stop just being an alcoholic when your kid stops just being autistic. I'll just stop being an alcoholic when you buck up and just stop being depressed. I will stop being an alcoholic when Wilford just stops being a diabetic. Alcoholism is a disease. Thank you.
Loved it.